The information extractor node is one of several AI nodes here in n8n, and honestly, it's one of the easier ones to pick up. Essentially, what this allows us to do is take a large body of text and then extract specific pieces of information that we want in a structured output. And this is really important when it comes to AI orchestration, because having structured output allows us to move to the next step, or in particular, the specific node that you want to. In today's video, we're going to go over a bunch of the different settings within the node, go over probably like 4 to 5 different examples, so that way you can start using this within your workflows. Really quick though, before we jump into n8n, if you guys want to join my free school community, it is linked down below. You can network with other people that are using n8n or data, whether they're using it for their full-time business or if they're using it to get customers on the freelancing side of things. I'm going to build an awesome community and I'm super active in there. A link is down below in the description. With that out of the way, let's jump right into n8n. Okay guys, so first off, before we jump into this node, where can you find it? So 2 different options. Click the plus icon, go into AI, and then you'll see it right below over here, Information Extractor. Also, you can just search the node. So just type in information over here and you'll find it as the information extractor. So what I want to do is load this up and kind of just explain some of these settings, and then we'll talk about why this is particularly used over the AI agent. So first, what you can do, click in over here. You'll see we have our first section over here, which is going to be for our text that we want to extract our data from. Then you have schema type, which you have 3 different schema types, which we'll be covering all of those in this video. So you have from attribute descriptions, extract specific information based on the text, right? And again, we'll explain this here in a second. You have the attributes, which only show if you're in attribute descriptions. You have JSON for the other 2. So for example, you'll see we have JSON there. And then lastly, we have 2 different options. We have our system prompt, which I highly recommend that you optimize this based off of your use case. And then we have batch processing, which is a little bit outside the scope of this video, but it's always a nice addition on there. So I'm just going to close this out because we're going to go through these examples. You can see we're going through 1, 2, 3, 4 different examples with you guys today, just to explain everything that is going on. But first, let's talk about this node. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So you want to use the information extractor node to extract structured information from incoming data. Now, the thing about it is when you work with data and you work with text data in general, usually it's not structured in some sort of capacity. However, when we're building out AI orchestration, we want to structure our text. So this is where typically you'll see someone using either an AI agent or an information extractor. Everything I show you guys here today, you can use with an AI agent. You just have to optimize your AI agent for those settings. Whereas the information extractor, again, if we go over here and you can see just the system prompt, it already has a system prompt associated with extracting the text, and it's been used for that specific use case. Whereas the AI agent out of the box isn't ready to go for information extraction. You're going to have to optimize the prompt and test it, whereas this is already kind of built for that. In addition, for the information extractor, at its current state, you have to extract the text data from any binary files beforehand. So if you have a PDF, for example, you're going to have to use the extract node. So we can extract from file, and I have a full video covering extract from file, and you can see convert binary files to JSON. So ideally, you would want to extract from the text file and then populate it into the information extractor. It does not work right now based off of just binary files. Is that going to change in the future? Possibly. I could see that happening, but right now that is not the case. Again, if you're watching this video 2 or 3 years in the future, maybe it's already built in, but I'm recording this November 1st of 2025. Okay. Other differences between this and the AI agent. An AI agent, you have the options for memories or tools. This, you can see over here, it just has a model that you could attach to it. In addition, in your AI agent, you'll have an output parser option. However, with our information extractor, it already outputs our data in a JSON format, which is really, really nice. So this is already built in. As I showed you as well, there's already a built-in prompt to extract. So again, if we go over to our AI agents, and I'll just populate one in. Often when we want to extract information, we're going to have to go over here, We're going to click onto the AI agent. We're going to go over here, require specific output format. And we go over here to our output, and then we're going to have a structured output parser, and often we'll put JSON over here. You can see we have the two different options, which both of these are already built in to our information extractor. Let me just go into this one over here because this is one of our JSON examples. So you can see our JSON examples already built into this node. Whereas in our AI agent, we're going to have to attach this JSON output parser. So hopefully that makes sense why we're using our information extractor. You have that built-in essentially output parser. We don't need memory. We don't need a specific tool attached to it. All we want to do is extract our information. So with that out of the way, let's go through our 4 examples. Let's learn how this node works. And that way you guys are ready to go and start using this in your extraction. So our first example, what we're going to do is use the default attribute descriptions. Now, personally, I think this is your best use case because it's already kind of built for you. And what we're going to do is also take a look at the 4 different attributes you can grab, which are booleans, date, number, and string. So all I'm doing to start this off is I'm doing this execute workflow, which I would hope that you already know how to do this, but just it's a manual trigger. And then we have our information extractor. The first thing you need to do with the information extractor, since it is an AI node, you have to specifically add in your large language model. So what I'm doing over here is just to show you, you have a lot of different options. You can see language models, you have Anthropic, you have DeepSeek, Gemini, you can use OpenRouter for different ones. I'm just using OpenAI since I feel like most people have OpenAI. I feel like that's the first one everyone uses. So that's why I'm going over here. I'm personally just using GPT-5 Mini. Again, if you're watching this in the future and you're like, why are you using GPT-5 Mini? It's not a good model. Well, again, this is kind of one of the cheaper models that's used in 2025. So that's why we have Mini on here. And then jumping into the information extractor. So the first part over here is this specific text. Now, I will show you 2 other ways which we can put text in over here. One from a previous node and one also from our chat trigger. But to keep things basic, what we're going to do is just input in some text over here. So what I recommend you guys do is grab some text online that you want to follow along this with. I am personally a big music fan, like rock and metal music. So I'm just going to use some band examples. For example, we're going to use Gojira, which is a metal band from France. And we're going to extract some information from this text over here. And what we're going to do is keep our schema type from attribute descriptions. Now, if you want to read this, like go ahead and read it, but essentially it talks about like when was the band formed, how many studio albums that they have over here, if they're active or not. And we're just going to extract that information. So our first attribute over here, and just to show you how to add a new attribute, all you want to do is click add attribute and it'll populate this, which will have name, your type, as well as your description, and if this is required or not. We'll talk about the requirement here in a second, but let's jump through those. So first we're going to look, is this active or not? And this is considered a Boolean value. So that's either going to be something that is true or false, yes or no, 1 or 0. So like, is the band still active and touring? Okay, well, they are, right? And it mentions as of 2024, they continue to tour internationally and remain active in the metal scene. So we know that this is an active band. They have not retired. So this should be true. And you can see the example over here that this is true. And I'll unpin it and just show you how this works here in a second. But our Boolean is going to be either a value that is true or false. And I want this to be required. Now we have formation date over here. And this actually should be a specific date if I want to grab the exact date on here. And I'm going to just change this up for this and say the exact date the band was formed. So I'm just going to pretend they were formed on, and I'm just going to change this up a little bit. We'll say they were 11/1/1996. Now it's not true, but we're just going to use that for this example. So that's why we have this specific date, and I say the exact date the band was formed at. They're going to grab that. Next, what we have over here is an album count. And what we're doing for the album count is a number. So the number is going to be like an integer, or it could be a float. So for example, we have 7 over here, which is going to be an integer. A float is something that has a decimal. Now in this use case, you can't have a half of an album. So you only have an integer on here, which is going to be specifically 7, but that's the difference, right? String is text, or it could be something like this, 1996, which we might want to have as text, but number over here has to be a specific number. Lastly, we have origin. So where is this band from? And I say over here as a description, the city and country where the band was formed. So again, those are the 4 options. You have a Boolean, true or false. You have the date. So you can think of a date format. Album, which is a number over here, or a description for that. And then we have origin, which we're just going to keep as a string. Now, the other thing over here is required. So if it's required, it's going to output this over here. It's going to look through our text and find it, but that's not going to always happen with information. Sometimes we're going to miss something over here. So if you don't think it should be a requirement within our text, you can just turn this off. And I'll just show you those 2 examples over there, but let's jump into this one really fast. I'm just going to unpin this data. We're going to save this workflow, and then we're just going to run and execute it. So you can see it goes in Information Extractor. It goes into our chat model. This is running right now. And then what will happen is you'll get those 4 different results. So you can see workflow executed successfully. And then what you can see, we have is active, which is true. We have a formation date. So we have that exact date over here. We have this album count, and then we have this origin. And you can see what this looks like in our schema, as well as our JSON. So really, really awesome across the board. Now we can also change this up, and if we're not too sure if something exists. So, I'm just going to save this over here, and we can just make a second version of this really fast. So I'm just going to do that. So we're just going to copy that over here. We'll just attach this over here as well. Doesn't really matter too much. Okay. And we'll go over here and go like this. Just change this up just to make this a little bit better. And what we're going to do on this side of things is just modify this. We're going to remove the city. So we talk about that in here, and we're going to remove that. Okay. So no mention of the city. And what we're going to do is remove this over here as a requirement. And I'm just going to run this again. So you can see, like, there's no way that it knows where this band is from, minus it's saying French heavy metal band, and it said city and country. So there's no idea where the city is at. And you can see that is now removed, right? We have the is active, the formation date, and the album count. So if you 100% want something to be extracted, make sure it's required. If you think this information might be missing, then you turn off the requirement on that side of things. So that is how, at a very basic level, the information extractor works. And why I really like from attribute descriptions is because right over here, you define what it is, you define the type, and you also write a description, which I think is really amazing. You can also add in expressions if you want to pass this in from earlier nodes. I think there's just a lot that's going on this side of things right out of the box, which is really, really nice. The only thing I would probably mention is you would want to maybe optimize the system prompt that is based around over here, but I'm going to show you guys that in a second. So again, that's our basic example. Let's jump into our example number 2, which is generating from a JSON example. So what we're going to do over here is add to our system prompt. And why we're going to do that is we want to have additional context on the side of it. So what we're going to do is pass this in over here and jump through. So we have a different one. This time we're talking about a band called Meshuggah. No idea how to pronounce that city, but they're from Sweden. A very famous metal band. And we have text over here based around it. And then you'll see we have this over here, generate from JSON example, which if you remember our output parser, we had those 2 different options. You had the JSON example, or you had this JSON schema. So we're just going to generate from a JSON example over here. So what I have is kind of a results from the one above, minus I just put in the year on this side of it instead of formation date. So I put is active, true, formation date, I just put as the year, album count, put the number of albums, and then the origin. So for example, that city, which I don't know how to pronounce, out of France. So we run this again over here and we get this output over here, which is correct. Now, that's nice and all, but I would highly recommend that we optimize the system prompt. So you can see over here, we click into system prompt template, and n8n was nice enough to build out an example. So it says you are an expert extraction algorithm. Only extract relevant information from the text. If you do not know the value of an attribute asked to extract, you may omit the attribute's value. So this kind of goes above over here where we had this required or not. So by default in this one, all these are off. And again, you can tweak that if you want in the system prompt template. The one thing I don't entirely love on this side of it is we don't have additional information for like is active, formation date, album count, or origin. Whereas the one above, right, we put that information in this description. So what I would recommend if you are using this JSON example, you just add in additional context over here. You can also rewrite this. So like you're an expert extracting algorithm, you know, what we could do, and I'm not going to fully do it here. You could write information about the use case. So in this case, we've been going over and grabbing things from band descriptions. So you're an expert extraction algorithm. Only extract relevant information from the text about music bands. Like again, just add in context over here. And then what we can do is have all these mentioned in over here. So you could say is active equals formation date, album counts, and then origin. Because there's no way of knowing really what these are. I'm making that assumption, but I would recommend you just put this into the system prompt over here. So we keep the normal part over here. We can expand on it as like I did over here. If this was going into production, I would add more information over here, but I'm just doing this for a video for you guys. And I don't want this to be too long. And then I would just recommend you just explain what's going on for each of these across the board. But this is your example of your output parser just directly within this information extractor. Again, I prefer that first option, but you'll get an output like this over here. So now we're going to jump into example number 3, which is another JSON example. Going to be very similar to the one above. I did make one other modification. So what I put over here is edit fields. So imagine we extracted from a PDF and we just pasted this over here as band info. We're grabbing information about the postal service. You know, they had one album. They're no longer active right now. Just a little bit more additional information where they're from. And then in the information extractor, all we do is drag and drop that text in over here rather than actually putting in. I made this a little bit more dynamic, and you can see it's populated over here. We have this full screen and we have that information. This time we put define using JSON schema. So a little bit more additional information. This time we describe what is happening. So you can see boolean, string, number, string. Again, I could make this a date, but I didn't specify the exact start date for this band. So that's why I just kept this as a string for that specific year. But regardless, the one above, the difference is this. I actually gave examples. You can see true, 1996, 7, and then a city state. Whereas over here, we just explain the data types associated with it, which is probably like my least favorite of the 3. So if I had to do this, I would prefer this method, number 2, number 3, because again, I just feel like it's missing a lot of context. And really to make up for it, you're going to have to optimize the system prompt template. I would just give examples of what is active is formation date, album count, and origin, and really expand this out. I didn't do that over here just because of time's sake for this video, but I'd really add in a lot of information. So let's say, for example, is active. So what I would say is active should be based around if the band is still touring and producing music. Then you would go over here like formation date is the exact year the band formed. For example, 1995. And I would just do that for each of these across the board. Context, so like what this is looking for, and then probably an example, which I'm missing the example over here. I should say this should be true or false. And, you know, being a Boolean, that makes sense. But again, just you want to give as much context as possible in this system prompt, because we just have the JSON schema and that's it. And a lot less information than above, or even right over here. So build that out. Obviously this got it correct because it's pretty easy text. Is active, false, postal service stopped touring, formation date 2001. It literally says formed over here, a supergroup formed in 2001, album count, they only have one album, literally mentions it right here, released one album, and then origin, it talks about Seattle, Washington. So super basic on that side of it, but important as well. All right, so last example, we're going to use a chat input. And imagine you had some sort of chat bot and you first want to extract information from that chat bot. So I just have some text over here. Hey, Ryan, thanks for dropping a 30-minute webhook video up until 10 minutes. I understand what is going on. However, I get confused at the 11-minute mark. Someone left a kind of rude comment on a video on the webhooks. So I just decided to make this a comment on here because someone was confused and then just started talking a lot about how the video is for advanced coders, which it wasn't. But again, I'd love to help out that person. So if you have any questions of videos, like feel free to leave it on here or in our school community. Try to help out people as long as you're not super rude about it. But let's go through this example over here. All you have to do for a chat input is put json.chat input over here. And you want to make sure that this is an expression. So this will get the information that we put over here in this chat message. And then again, you have the three different options. I'm just going to use from attribute description. We're going to say issue. We're going to call this a string and what the person is having problems with. I'm going to keep this off from required. If we're having a chat input, I would recommend probably off on the requirement and just add in additional information. I'm just keeping it as one for a very basic example on here. And again, I would highly recommend that you optimize your system prompt, but we're just going to keep it very basic. On the side of things, we're going to open our chat. I'm going to clear this chat and we're going to run through it. So I'm just going to copy this message and this is being sent. It's going to go into our information extractor. And let's see what happens. So we go over here and it says issue, confused about the content 11-minute mark of the 30-minute webhook video, understood everything up to 10 minutes. There we go. We extracted it from there. I'm going to close this. We're going to just do a recap really fast. So that way, hopefully you guys understand why this node is used and should be good to go. So first off, why we aren't using the AI agent? Well, we aren't using everything an agent has. This doesn't have any options for specific tools. This has no options for memory. The only thing it has over here is an option to add in a large language model. In addition, our format at the very end is built into this node, whereas when we're using an AI agent, we need to set a specific output parser. So this has one job, just to extract information from text and then put it in a specific output that we require. There's three different approaches that you could use. Personally, my favorite is from attribute descriptions because you can just go over here and label things as you specifically want. You have a description already built in, and there's very little that you're going to have to do to change on your system prompt, which I highly recommend that you still optimize your system prompt, even if you're using this. You have this option for a requirement. You can either turn this on or off, depending like, hey, do I 100% need this data, or it's okay if it's missing. You have four different types. You can set a Boolean, which is true or false. You can set a date, which is month, day, or day, month. Specifically a number, which can be an integer or float, or a string, which is going to be text on that side of things. In addition, you could also use from a JSON example, which is very similar to our output parser, or you could have this over here, another JSON, which this shouldn't say JSON example, but a JSON schema, and I'll just put over here, that was my small mistake, which I like this the least out of the three options. Again, you're gonna have to really optimize that system prompt. In addition, you can also have a chat input. Make sure you put this as chat input like this. Our information extractor needs to have the text already extracted. So if you have a document of some sort, extract that text first before putting information extractor. Typically you'll have like an extract from PDF node or however else you want to extract it. Then you put it into like an edit set and then just drag and drop it in over here as I did on this side of things. But that is your information extractor. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you found value, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I have probably 50 plus n8n videos right now. My goal is to have over 100. If you want to join a community of other people that are learning about AI, that are interested in data, interested in freelancing and things like that, I have a free school community. The link is down below in the description as well. So I'd recommend that you check that one out, and I will catch you guys in another video.